An ignorant Christian. Who is an ignorant Christian? Somebody called a majority of Christians in the world today to be ignorant Christians. To be ignorant Christians. Then I ask, why should you refer to Christians in the world, majority of them, to be ignorant Christians? He told me that majority of the Christians he has encountered, apart from the academia world where he exists, apart from being a good professor he has been for almost 30 years, tells me the Christians, the majority of the Christians he has interacted with, they portray, they show a character of persons who have suspended reason. That they have embraced faith, they have embraced their Christianity, but they have suspended reason. Then this reminded me of a teaching of St. Paul, of the teaching of St. John Paul II, when he said, faith and reason are like two wings on which human spirit races to the contemplation of God. That human spirit is enabled to contemplate truth by faith and reason. That faith and reason are like two wings on which human spirit races to contemplate truth. And that truth is God. It means reason helps, or reason becomes an aid to faith. That faith and reason, they help each other to come to the knowledge of God. They help a human spirit to come to the knowledge of God, to come to contemplate truth. That means when this man was telling me that many Christians in the world today, they seem as if they have suspended reason and they have embraced faith, my understanding from his explanations were that many of the Christians of today, they have embraced a faith they do not know much about. They have embraced that faith, that Christianity, but they are shallow in the knowledge of the Christian faith that they have embraced. The majority of those he has encountered, they have not freely chosen the faith from a point of knowledge. They have just embraced faith, maybe because it's fashionable or because it's an inherited faith in the family, or because it is a normal thing to do. But they have not chosen that faith freely by point of knowledge that I know and have intentionally chosen to be Christian. And these are the reasons as to why I have chosen to be a Christian. According to him, majority of those he has encountered cannot defend as to why they are Christians. They cannot give reasons as to why they are Christians today, as to why they have chosen the Christian faith. Why are you a Christian? Because I found my parents in the Christian faith. Because it's our family faith. Why are you Catholic? Because my mother is a Catholic, my dad is a Catholic. That you have no reason as to why to embrace the faith, but because it is fashionable, it is something of the family, it's something you have found others doing, that you just embrace it. But you have no knowledge of what you are embracing. That means you have no knowledge of the God you are embracing. You are embracing something that you don't know. That's according to what he was explaining. He had a point to that aspect. That majority of the Christians, they have a shallow understanding of the Christian faith that they have chosen. And that's why he called them ignorant Christians. They are Christians, but they are ignorant. They are ignorant of the faith that they have embraced. That they have not taken time to think through as to why they are Christians, as to why they have chosen to be Christians. They cannot defend being Christian. That is a fundamental question for those who profess the Christian faith. Why are you a Christian? Why do you profess Christianity? Why are you a Catholic? Why do you go to church? Why do you go for Mass? Why do you do what you do? Do you have a reason behind doing what you do in the realm of faith? But then John Paul II reminds us this very aspect. He says, God has placed in our hearts or in the human heart the desire to know the truth. If you find yourself, you are not having that desire to know the truth, maybe you have suspended your reason. But God has placed in the human heart the desire to know. So every human being has that desire to know. And indeed, desire to know the truth. And as we have just mentioned, that truth that we are talking about is God. The desire to know the truth. He has placed that in our hearts. The desire to know the truth. To know God. That is to know Himself. He has placed that desire in us to know Him. Then how do we know Him as Christians? We can only know Him and expel ignorance from our faith by Scripture, through Scripture, being friendly with the Scripture. If we ignore Scripture, we are ignoring the truth, we are ignoring God. If we profess Christianity, if we profess to be Catholics, and we have ignored Scripture, we are ignorant Christians, according to my friend, because we do not know God. And that desire in us has been suspended. We can know Him through Scripture, but we must not suspend that reason God has given to us, that faith and reason go together. They help the human spirit to rise to contemplate truth, to contemplate God. Suspending reason, we may tend to become just fanatical or fanatics in following the faith without any knowledge of it. By knowing Him, loving Him, we come to the full knowledge of ourselves. That means we can never know ourselves fully unless we know God. By knowing Him and loving Him, we come to a full knowledge of ourselves. So if we do not know God, we have not loved Him, we have not known ourselves fully. That means we have a lot of work to do. That means, therefore, ignorance of our God is ignorance of who we are. Not knowing God and loving God, we have not known ourselves fully. That's what St. John Paul II tells us. That knowing Him, loving Him, we come to the fullness of truth about ourselves. Knowing Him, loving Him, and we can know Him, love Him through Scripture. We come to fullness of truth about ourselves. So, therefore, my brothers and sisters, we can only know ourselves fully by knowing God. We can know ourselves fully only if we know God. So, for today, just a short one for contemplation. Just think about it. Are you an ignorant Christian? Can you give reasons as to why you are a Christian or reasons as to why you are a Catholic? Why are you a Christian? Why are you a Catholic? Why do you do what you do in terms of faith? But remember, faith and reason are like two wings on which human spirit rises to contemplate truth, and that truth is God. And we can only know God if you are a Christian through Scripture. And by knowing Him and loving Him, we come to the fullness of truth about ourselves. So, therefore, my brothers and sisters, do not continue being an ignorant Christian. Be an informed Christian. Use both reason and faith in search of truth, in search of God. The desire to know has been placed in our hearts. The desire to know God. And faith and reason will help us to know God. May God bless you and have a good evening.